Shelley, not really. Generally, you'll find that the older lionesses, the more experienced lionesses, will take the lead. But often you'll find once the subadults reach that early adulthood phase, particularly for lionesses, they tend to be the ones that initiate the hunts because they're still learning. And I've seen it time and time again while watching and spending lots of time with lion prides. We saw it with the youngest Nkuhuma female trying to hunt a giraffe whilst the others stood there and went, nah, we're not interested in doing that today, thank you very much. And I've seen it regularly with a female that we used to watch on the reserve I previously worked on. As she went into sort of that early adulthood phase, she would always be the one to initiate the hunts. So there's no dominant lioness that we know of that we can easily see. It's not like a matriarch of a hyena clan where it's relatively easy to establish who's in charge. And generally the lionesses tend to work just quite well in a team. They don't seem to be too bothered. Often the oldest lioness will hang back when she reaches about 13, 14, just because her reaction times are slower. She's not as fit and as her reflexes aren't as sharp as they used to be. But no, there's no real dominance display. The same goes for male lion coalitions. They tend to have a sort of a fluid idea of dominance within a coalition. It's difficult to say this one is the most dominant and will always be the most dominant. And sometimes personalities stand out, but it's quite a fluid thing that happens. Oh, I was going to go on to my second trivia question. Bear in mind, this is not designed to catch anybody out. It's just so that we can all learn. Tayla was talking about the black-footed cat, the small spotted cat, as it is also known. I had a picture for you because Tayla, rightly so, has decided not to take any of her books out on safari. I also wouldn't have in this rain. So there you go. That is a picture of a black-footed cat for those of you who aren't looking at Google. Aren't they cute? And they tend to be found in the more arid areas. Obviously, it looks a lot like a domestic cat, and that's, of course, because domestic cats actually potentially had their origins in Africa. So all of our felis species, particularly African wildcat, can interbreed with domestic cats, and that actually is what makes them vulnerable to extinction, because there are so many feral cats, stray cats. We have the same problem as in many areas with feral cats, and then they interbreed, and that beautifully pure wild genetic line is lost. So that is the small spotted or the black-footed cat. I've never seen one. I have worked in the areas where they're found, but as yet I have not been lucky enough to encounter one. The next trivia question is how many species of the Felidae family are there in Africa? So not just Southern Africa, Africa. There's another cat that vies for the title in terms of smallest cats in Africa. Oh, by the way, I did check for Tayla. Serval and caracal, much the same in terms of weight. She's absolutely right. Caracals are more stocky. Servals are a little bit taller. But they're pretty much on the same, roughly 12 kilograms odd weight, which is around about just over 25 pounds. So I did double check that for her since she doesn't have a reference book. So, last time for our next trivia question is how many species of the Felidae family are there in Africa? There we go. Let us jump on board with Tayla and find out how her scouring of Cheetah Plains is going.
So we're bumbling along. We had a look at Buffalo Pan and we also checked Cheetah Plains Pan. Unfortunately, I think that lioness is gone, and I actually saw her tracks coming across one of the roads just east of Cheetah Plains Pan, going straight towards Buffalo Pan, but there was nothing there, so I suspect she's gone back either into Nkoro or done a sneaky and then gone further east and then gone into the Kruger Park. So it seems as though this cat is no longer on the property. But what do we have? What footprints do I have down here? But again, we've just had a big downpour of rain. It looks like it was hyena tracks very early this morning, but they're all very washed away. That's the only problem, and I love the rain. I have no issue with it. But when you're trying to search for animals, it really does make it that much more difficult. And trying to age the tracks, and then also just trying to identify what it was. Oh, and I must tell you, I had a good chuckle with myself now. Those frogs that I were hearing were not frogs. But there must have been about 3 or 4 monotonous larks around me in the grass somewhere, because I couldn't see them making a noise. And I've never seen or heard a monotonous lark before. I don't know why, but that call is so distinct and so familiar, I would have definitely remembered it. And then we found one but it flew away. It was sitting up very high on a tree, which was so interesting. So I've added another list to my bird list. How exciting is that? And well, speaking about birds, it seems as though Jani might have a roadrunner.
Alright everybody, we've spotted, it seems to be a Red Crested Korhaan. It's one of the terrestrial birds in the area. You can see, easily identified by their well camouflage coloration. And these birds are also sometimes known, believe it or not, as the kamikaze bird, as the males will usually do an aerial display where they will first start to clap their beak or snap their beak, if you want to call it that, and then as soon as after the slapping of the beak, they'll start calling, and then all of a sudden they'll fly up into the sky, and it almost seems as if someone shoots it with a shotgun, but at a specific distance they'll stop flying and then fall to the ground. And these males try and show off. They try and show to the females that they are brave and that they are daredevils, and they try and see how close they can get to the ground without injuring themselves. Quite funny what guys would do to impress a lady. But let's just follow a little bit further in the road. I think this Red Crested Korhaan has just gone around the corner. I can't see him anymore. Let's carry on. It's been a very fortunate morning so far. So during the time while you were listening to Jamie and Tayla, we were trying to look for any tracks or signs of Karula, as we only found the 2 cubs this morning of her. But Karula is probably out somewhere here in the bush, seeing if she can maybe find some breakfast for the 2 youngsters this morning. As I said earlier in the show, this is a very favorable time for predators to hunt, as they take the opportunities when animal senses or prey senses are limited. Right, so someone, you are asking if birds go quiet when they are near predators. Indeed they do, as they do not want to be located by these predators close by. But you will also find that if predators get too close, birds can actually play a great role for us as guides to know where these predators are moving. I mean, that will startle the bird will fly up, he will alarm or he will start calling, and he will warn everyone else in the area also of the hazardous situation or the potential danger that might be in the area for someone else. I think it seems like we have lost that Red Crested Korhaan, but let's carry on, see if we can find any tracks of Karula. We're still in a block close by in the area from where the cubs were. It started drizzling again. It's pouring down a little bit more from what it did earlier, but this is a great blessing. The rain that we're having at the moment is from the 2 years back we've had severe droughts, and it is just absolutely wonderful to see the African bush in the state that it is in now. It's beautiful, lush green. We've seen an animal moving up ahead. Let's just see. Oh, that's an Impala over there. It's good to see them still moving around. I don't think they're very impressed with the rain this morning. Let's see if we can get a nice view of them, just to see how miserable they are. They don't seem too miserable. Alright. But like you can see, as I was talking earlier, prey animals will usually move a little bit closer together, and they'll also move more into the thickets. And you can see it here where they were all standing together in a group, and you can see that they're all sticking together. Their ears are peaked, so you can see that they're also trying to listen of any dangers or any potential hazards that might be around. These youngsters are just too lovely. There's a little nursery herd over here. Have you ever wondered why Impala's skin is so clean from ectoparasites? You'll sometimes find it where in areas such as giraffe or buffalo might be having quite a few ectoparasites or ticks, if you want to call it that, around in the groin area as well as behind the ears, and areas where it's very difficult for them to reach. But with Impala, they have the behavior called allo-grooming. And then they also usually groom themselves. But Impala have got a specialized lower jaw. And this specialized lower jaw, the teeth is loosened within the jaw, not in a way that it will fall out, but it acts as a specific function that when Impala groom themselves or groom each other, these teeth will open up and it acts as a comb, and it actually combs all of the parasites out of the area. Now, according to theory, they also reckon that these black markings on Impala also play a specific function within gathering ectoparasites on specific parts of the body. So parasites are usually attracted to the warmer parts of the body. And what you will notice is Impala have got black stripes, 3 little black stripes on the rump area, as well as in the groin area, and then on the ear and on the forehead. So the theory reckons that parasites would be drawn more to these parts as the black parts on the body heats up a lot more than the rest of the body. And then that also makes it a little bit more easier for each other, or for either for the individual or for another individual busy allo-grooming to get rid of all these ectoparasites. Also, their coloration is very much of interest, as they are called counter-shaded, meaning counter-shaded. You can see that they're dark from the top, so when they're viewed from above, they will usually blend in with the darker area of the sky, and when they're viewed from the bottom, which won't easily happen, they'll blend in with the lighter contrast in the sky. And by this two-dimensional coloration which these Impala have got, or the counter-shaded coloration, it will actually cause them to appear two-dimensional within their natural environment. So when a predator is viewing these Impalas, it will often look like they might appear like something just like an overfallen branch or a rock in a specific given area. You can see, just looking at their behavior, how they carefully moving through cover at all times, also just to try and be less visible in the bush. I'm just going to move a little bit forward. Alright, it seems like they're moving down into the drainage line. Alright, everybody, I think we're going to link to Tayla just for an update to see what she's been having quite interesting things this morning, or she's seen quite some interesting things, very interesting chats. So over to Tayla.
It's very rainy here on Cheetah Plains. We've had like another big downpour come down, so Brian and I unfortunately have given up the search for Kuchava. We have checked around the areas that she was yesterday, but I think she's probably lying in well, I don't know if she's either crossed the boundary, or if I was her, this rain is a little bit miserable, so I'd be tucked away, probably off of this very wet long grass, probably in a tree with some nice leaves to give a bit of shelter. So that is what I would be doing. But we'll have to wait again, and no, that's not a tail. I thought I saw a tail for a moment. No. So that's a pity, but we will try again a little bit later, maybe this afternoon for the sunset safari. We can give it a bash. Now, you know, we always have new viewers watching all the time, so we have a new one from New Zealand, but I'll get to that now. So Maxie, who is our new viewer from New Zealand, sorry. Brazil, sorry. My apologies. My name is Tayla, and then you'll get to know all of the different characters that we have here. It's not just the animals, there's a couple of people. And then Brian is on camera with me today, and you'll meet the thumb. You'll see the thumb gets all dressed up in the afternoons, which is really quite lovely. So Maxie, you're wondering where are we broadcasting live from? So at the moment, we're in South Africa, which is pretty amazing. We're in the northeastern corner in a wilderness area known as the Greater Kruger National Park. So we're not part of the national park. We are on a private reserve in the Sabi Sand. So we're open to 8.5 million acres of land. So the animals can move around, but we are restricted to areas that we can, of course, drive on. But this is really nice in the private sectors, because we can, of course, off-road. If there's an animal off-road, if you're going to the Kruger National Park, sadly you are restricted to just the roads. And we're so excited that you've started watching, and I hope that you tune in twice a day, and I'm sure all our regular viewers have given you a warm welcome. But now the reason why I said for the moment we are in South Africa is because we're going to be soon heading up to Kenya in the Mara Triangle and doing some broadcasts from there too. So isn't that amazing how the company is growing, WildEarth is growing, that we're going to be doing feeds from all over, which is so exciting. I'm really excited about it, to see the different types of animals. And that's really amazing, because as you move into different parts of the world, you start to see different behaviors that animals start to exhibit. It's all got to do with their surroundings and how they've learned to adapt. Like here, for instance, the lions have it, I think the lions have it easier out here when it comes to hunting, because there's so much shrubbery and smaller vegetation, not only long grass, that they can hide behind. So that helps them a little bit. When you're going to the Mara Triangle, I haven't been, but just from all the footage that I've seen, it seems to be sort of trees that are sort of scattered about, but big open grasslands, which is really beautiful, and then the different river systems that flow around there. And I think it must get difficult when that grass gets short to have to hunt. Like I said, out here, hide behind all these little trees, which is quite nice. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes about, and learning about the different prides of lions in that area. And I think the clans of hyena are going to be exceptional. Now, speaking about lions and prides and do we see in this particular area? So I would say, we can sort of count them. Of course, the Nkuhumas are the main pride lions. We'll do the prides first, and then we occasionally see the Torchwood pride, though they tend to be sort of more northeast, more sort of in Kruger. Then we see the Styx pride. We see, I think, all for females. I might stand corrected, but we'll have a chat with Jamie just now. So I think those, and then when it comes to the boys, we've got the Birminghams. I think the Majingalans used to be seen at one point. I have yet to see them. There's some Talala males in that pride that I was talking to you about as well. So they're there. Who else do we see? The Matimbas. Do you used to see the Matimbas, right, Brian? Matimbas, they're not around very often anymore. We don't see them. So it's interesting as to sort of who comes through here. But I think Jamie's been up in this area for a little bit longer. Maybe we should have a chat with her. So I'm going to send you across to Jamie in the tent.
I can can tell you a few things about the lion prides that we have in this area. I can tell you about the lion prides that we see. Now, there are groups of people that have become very, very involved in keeping track of the various lion prides, the various male coalitions. I'm purely going to speak from the lions that we see in this particular spot. So on Djuma itself, the territory is kind of shared between two lion prides. Most of it is sort of time spent with the Nkuhuma pride, which is 5 lionesses and 6 cubs. Now, the Nkuhumas, it's important to remember the territorial boundaries are fluid. So when I say they spend most of their time sort of towards Djuma, now that they've moved up further north, we sometimes see the Styx pride, which is the other pride, coming a little bit further into Djuma every now and again. So there's a lot of give and take with lion prides. They have home ranges, and generally they're not too bothered about defending them as fiercely as, for example, a male coalition would be in terms of keeping other male lions out. They just generally try and avoid each other. So the Nkuhuma pride, the Styx pride, 3 lionesses and 2 cubs. Then we have a little bit to the north of us, the Torchwood pride and the Talamati prides, neither of which we have seen. So I'm not going to give you the full details into their numbers because we don't see them regularly. So there's a chance that my numbers might not be 100% accurate from what I last read or what I last heard. Talamati and Torchwood prides. Talamati is a camp in Kruger, so they originated from that sort of area, a little bit to the east of us, to the north, I think, to the northeast of us. And then Torchwood is the property a little bit to the east of us. Now, the Torchwood pride obviously gets their name from Torchwood, or potentially the tree, which is where the Torchwood name comes from, Balanites tree. But that Torchwood area is now part of the Nkuhuma pride. Then we get the Salala pride that I think, as I said, that territorial boundaries are constantly shifting. They used to be seen far more regularly up in this sort of area around Arathusa. They now don't spend all that much time there, which makes complete sense because it is pretty much part of the Birmingham boys' regular haunt. They do, well, not regular, but they do occasionally go on to Arathusa, which is to the west of us. So the Salala pride, the adult lioness without a tail, it is such a cool thing to see. Not that I wish any injury upon an animal, but her lack of a tail hasn't bothered her at all. Apparently it was removed by a hyena, as it was with her mother before her, strangely enough. Some kind of weird coincidence there. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a slight genetic fault in the joints of those tails, because the fact that both a mother and a daughter lost a tail seems quite coincidental. So there's 3 young males who are now, what would they be, 2? Just over 2 years old now, and the female as well, a young female with them. And so those are the Salala pride. Those are the lion prides that we encounter. There's also the Shumungwe pride. The Shumungwe pride went from being an incredibly numerous pride. There were lots and lots of lions within the Shumungwe pride, a very successful pride, and then through various encounters with male lions within transitions of territories and so on, they essentially went down to 3 sub-adult members. And to the best of my knowledge, the remaining Shumungwe sub-adults have not been seen in a considerable period of time. They just move constantly. They run constantly. They're trying to find a place where they feel safe, which is very, very difficult out here. And sometimes lion prides disappear completely. Sorry, you want to know if lions will fight within their own pride? Absolutely they do. So generally the biggest conflict comes within the lion prides when they're feeding. It's a bit of a free-for-all. There's lots of growling, the occasional smack. Lionesses tend not to be too rough with each other. You don't often see them having a real proper scrap. Male coalitions, on the other hand, regularly fight with each other. There's this constant vying for dominance, constant sort of trying to be the one that mates with that female. They get very, very defensive over a female in estrus. And I would suspect that a lot of the injuries that we see on the Birmingham boys come from infighting. So we've got a coalition of 4 male lions. They are the dominant male lions in this area. And they tend to be scratched up, particularly Mfumo. He seems to be the one who somehow gets the most injuries, but they tend to be the ones that they will fight quite a bit within their coalition, and then it's forgotten. 2 seconds later, it is forgotten, and the lions are rubbing heads and affectionate with each other. So that for them is the norm. It is like having a minor disagreement with a work colleague or a family member, or having a little fight with them, and immediately they're back to loving each other and being united once again. So there's nothing abnormal about that. And then the other thing that we've noticed, especially recently with the Birminghams and the Nkuhumas, I'm saying Birmingham's and Nkumas just because those are the two that we see regularly interacting with each other. Particularly when the cubs were young, the lionesses were on edge. They were a little bit, and when you throw in hormones of one of the females coming into estrus or into heat, and we had a few spectacular blowouts where the lionesses would attack the males would attack each other, they'd attack the lionesses. It just turned into utter chaos. So yes, there's plenty of fighting within the lion prides. It does happen. Generally less so with the females. I was going to go somewhere with that point, and I've forgotten. Oh, yes, I remember what I was going to say. So the Birmingham boys are our main coalition. They took over from the two Matimba males, who very recently moved all the way from where they were in the south, right up north into Manyaleti and those areas, which is interesting, because that is where they were sort of originally, that area was where they were originally from. So they moved up to the northern areas. I know they've been seen recently. I also have heard that one of the Salati males, who I saw once back in the very beginning before the Birmingham boys came in, I've heard that one of the Salati males has also recently passed away. So changes, shifts happening within our lion dynamics, but they're sort of always, what's the word I'm looking for? There's always a sort of a transition period happening. It's a sort of waves and swings and roundabouts. Now, just to explain a little bit more for our new viewers about our lovely lion dynamics, let's have a look at this clip, as of course always narrated by the spectacular James Henry.
Most cats, as your tabby will tell you, are solitary. The African lion is the exception. In Kruger, a pride consists of 4 or 5 lionesses and their cubs. Their obvious affection is both amusing and heartwarming.
Oh, that is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Unlike the Lion King would have you believe, male lions are not part of the pride. They live in coalitions. Young males leave the home as adolescents. Brothers and cousins roam the wild like unruly teenagers. But once the territory is secure, males can relax with their prides. While inescapably lazy when it comes to finding their dinner, males have a charming relationship with their cubs. But their time as dominant male lions is limited. Sooner or later, stronger youngsters will invade the territory looking for a pride of their own. This is where things get nasty. The new coalition will kill all cubs under a year old. It's foul to watch, but serves a purpose for the new dominance, because the bereft mothers will come into heat and the new bosses can then further their own bloodlines.
There we go. So you've got a little bit more background into the way in which our various coalitions work, or not various coalitions, various pride work when interacting with the males of this area. And I have to tell you, I really think as though James was... This job was built for somebody like James, especially with his that voice for narration. I just don't think you get anything better than that, particularly with his incredibly crisp accent. It works very, very well. So there you go, the interaction between the Birmingham boys. It was so nice to see Scrapper as well. Scrapper was the 5th member of the Birmingham boys. He was also known as Tokolosh. He had various names. But he was a really, truly charismatic lion in terms of the way that he interacted. He was one of the youngest members of the Birmingham boys, but full of attitude. And that black eye that he had, he was the lion in the shot that you saw chasing the Nkumas off the buffalo kill. He had the most easily identifiable face. And we do miss him. He was a character. Now, Tiffany, you want to know how the Nkumas got their name. I'm not sure exactly who named them. I heard a rumor that it was Aubrey, who works at Voyatella, the lodge where we live on Djuma. I heard it was Aubrey. I don't know whether or not that is actually the case. However, the Nkuhuma tree is the local Xitsonga name for a brown ivory tree. So the reason that they were called that, apparently, I've heard different stories, but apparently was because when they were first seen, they often liked to spend time in the shade. It's quite a big tree, and it's a very, very shady tree, and apparently the Nkuhumas spent a lot of time in the shade of an Nkuhuma tree, hence the name. But quite often what you'll find is that lion prides, there's obviously exceptions to the rule, but quite often they are named for the area that they come from, hence the Torchwood Pride and the Talamati Pride, and for example the Birmingham Pride, which is where the Birmingham Boy Pride originally came from. So that's where those names come from. Now, David, you want to know whether or not the Birmingham boys stay together always. No, they don't, which is generally what happens with established male lion coalitions. So when they come in, they spend time as a sort of a united force, coming in strongly, intimidating by sheer numbers. And the Birmingham boys, one of the advantages they had, and one of the reasons why they came in so young, was just five. 5 male lions is a serious force to be reckoned with. And even the Matimbas, who were bigger and more experienced, there were only 2 of them. And it made a total sense for them to move out and to leave this area to the Birmingham boys. They don't stay together anymore, and that's because they've established an enormous territory and they've had cubs with several different prides, and as a result they actually need to focus their attentions on making sure that no male lions feel brave enough to come slipping in. So if all 4 of them were together, they would leave large portions of their territories unguarded, so they spend a lot of time patrolling, moving between the different lion prides, and then leaving them in the evenings and going off and roaring, calling. Now I suspect that they know where they all are at any time, at any one point in time, just through those contact calls, through roaring to each other. And I also suspect that they often regularly come together in the evenings or at night. That's when they do most of their patrolling. We see, usually, Tino and Mfumo together, sometimes with Nena, and Nsugu tends to spend a little bit more time on his own. And it's been a very, very long time since I have seen all 4 of them together once again, which is just a natural part of how they interact. Now, Shamsan, you want to know if 2 smaller prides of lions will join up and join forces? No, generally not. So what might happen if that's recorded in sort of ecological, biological history is because they are related to each other. So what sometimes happens is you get a split with lion prides, particularly when there's a takeover. Some of the lionesses who don't have cubs will stick around and try and distract the males but they'll come into estrus, they'll mate with them, they'll flirt with them, and just try and keep them away from the other lionesses with the cubs. And what will then happen is the lionesses will shepherd their young cubs away, and if they can, try and save them in that manner. And that sometimes results in a split. The Mangane pride, for example, and the Salalas have a history in that sort of context. But often they'll come back together, sometimes they won't. Mangane pride and the Salalas haven't really, but you might see them interacting just because they've got the memory of that connection. But unrelated lion prides will not come together and fuse. There are some very odd situations. There are always anomalies out here in the wild, like, for example, the wild dog that decided she wants to be part of a jackal family because she didn't have anyone. And you sometimes hear stories of solitary lionesses and solitary male lions being accepted into other prides. You'll find probably if you were to do DNA tests that there's a level of relatedness, just because it makes sense for them to be able to reconnect in that way. But they are such social cats that it's a very, very strong desire within them. I once knew a lioness called Bella. Now, Bella was... This requires a little bit of background. So there are lots of closed systems in South Africa, private reserves that are absolutely critical to our conservation, but they're not open system, and as a result, they need to be managed. Where we are now is 8.5 million acres of unfenced wilderness. The animals manage themselves. The smaller the area gets, the more intensive your human management has to be because you put fences there. So, for example, preventing inbreeding with lions, allowing them to move, and so on. And one of the things that research was done on this particular reserve was to contracept, or to test out contraception on this lioness. And they tested it out. It was a hormonal contraception. And the males lost interest in her because they seemed to realize that she wasn't ovulating. She didn't become fertile. She didn't come into estrus or into heat. So they lost interest in her, and the pride pushed her slowly out into the outskirts until she left completely. And Bella moved out, couldn't be found for so long that the contraceptive wore off. She started mating with a male lion that she happened to encounter and had 3 cubs. And essentially just formed her own pride. She never ever was accepted back into the original Mokutsu pride that she used to be part of, despite the fact that her sisters were still there, her mother was still there. And then, strangely enough, her mother, Midget, became quite old, and Midget was, again, separate. She sort of split away with her sub-adult cubs, her sub-adult male cubs for a while. And then eventually, when we finally found Midget once again, she would be with them. Sometimes she'd be with the Mokutsu pride, and sometimes she'd be with Bella and her cubs. And interesting, funny little things that happen within the lion's world. And that, of course, is quite not an artificial situation. Those lions are still wild, but there's quite a big degree of human interference within that. It was just interesting to see the way in which those dynamics flowed and changed. But no, generally speaking, absolutely not. So there you go. The lions of this area. I wanted to show you something under the microscope. Absolutely beautiful, transparent wings of an insect. Oh, goodness gracious. How does James do this? There you go. When you're not settled, look at the hairs on it. I never would have guessed. So there we are, the most beautiful spots of this particular type of wing, completely transparent, belonging to a very short-lived insect that we get out here called an antlion. And I would say they're short-lived. That's not actually 100% true. The larvae of the antlion are the ones responsible for those conical pits that we found in the ground, and they can be in that form for about 20 years. I'm sorry if this is making you seasick. Perhaps I should put the microscope down. It's quite a tricky thing holding it still, particularly when it's quite chilly and one starts to shiver. There we go. That's much better. So there we go. Here's our lovely antlion. Never mind, it's flown away. Sorry, antlion. So the antlion larvae are the ones that are in the conical pits. This is the adult form. And some of them only survive for 24 hours. This one is one of the longer-lived species. But isn't it beautiful? I think they're absolutely stunning. Now, I don't know any truly fascinating trivia on antlions that you haven't heard before. I think we've pretty much covered them in the past. Taylor, you wanted to know whether or not big cats are included in my Felidae question. Yes, the family of Felidae is what I'm asking about. So yes, including the big cats of the Panthera and other subfamilies. And on that note, let us go and find out what Taylor has to say about it.
Sure, it's a tricky one. I'm going to guess 7. Should I give you why I think 7? So if we start, and I think Jamie said it was just in southern Africa. Right, I'm just deciding on which road we're going to go down. Let's take this one over here. So I think I started off with the black-footed cat. Then I went to African wildcat. Then I did serval, caracal. And then I did, what else is there? Lion, leopard, cheetah. All of Africa. Okay, I don't know. No, my goodness. I'm just trying to think. No, but that makes it tricky because there's like a African golden cat. Now this makes it really tricky. But if we do the whole of Africa, I don't know. I have no idea. You've stumped me, Jamie. So I'm interested to hear in the answers. But I reckon just in southern Africa, we probably have about 7 in the Felidae family, which is quite interesting. But we'll wait for Jamie's answer because I'm sure she'll elaborate on who exactly is in there. But it'd be quite interesting because I remember reading something about, I don't know if I'm making this up, a golden cat or something along those lines in Namibia. I remember reading an article of some sort about that, but it could have also been completely fabricated with the amount of nonsense that goes on the interweb. So yes, that's my answer. What was that? Hang on, I don't know. I think I saw something. It's either that or a tree that's got very orange. I don't know what I saw. Let's go back. It can't be an elephant because elephants don't climb trees. But I think it is just a tree with orange leaves. Where did I see it? Amazing the small things that grab your attention as you're driving about. Thought it was here. No, imagined it. I imagined something that was very orangey brown color, almost the color of the road, I suppose, down there. But it was very high up in the tops of the trees, so it's probably just dead leaves. Oh my goodness. Right, we're actually close to Buffelshoek Dam. Maybe we'll have a quick look around here. Whee! At some point, when we eventually get there. This road is quite wet and slippery. I think we're on a fire break at the moment. And they don't get driven very often. They're not too compacted. Lots and lots of damage from the heavy rains that we've had. You can see, if you look up ahead, all the erosion that you can see along this road. Look at that. And that's all from rain pushing through. And you should be able to hear how heavy the rain is now. It's a good soaking rain, which is what we need. We don't need any more flash rain storms that come through and cause all this destruction to the roads, because that's no good. That doesn't do any good for the soil. It just washes the topsoil away, which is vital. All these plants to grow in. Right, let's slide around this corner. I'm taking the scenic route today. Oh no, we've got the rain in front of us. But we're actually going to start making our way closer towards home, just in case it does get too heavy. We're getting pounded by it at the moment. What do you think is going to be at Buffelshoek Dam, Brian?
A crocodile.
A crocodile. Brian thinks a crocodile. I think a terrapin and a blacksmith lapwing and an Egyptian goose, or 2 Egyptian geese, and possibly a 3-banded plover as well. But of course those are our regular visitors to the dam. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, Rebecca wants to see 2 crocodiles there. Okay, Rebecca, we'll try and get you 2 crocodiles. Would you like them to be doing, must they be doing a performance? Because we can organize that, handstanding crocodiles. Oh, not handstanding, actually, okay, walking on their back legs. Rebecca says she'd like to see 2 crocodiles walking along with their back legs. What about a crocodile in a suit serving the birds drinks, hot chocolate or something like that? Would be nice. Okay, I'm talking nonsense now. But remember yesterday with those elephants, it was so funny, it was so exciting. It was so random, as I never expected them to be where they were. And I must tell you, when I'd spotted them, obviously my focus now was drawn to the elephants, and I only remembered that I had Mildred the millipede on my head when I got back to camp. So I arrived back at camp and was about to take my hat off, and then touched Mildred, and Mildred, I think, got a fright. I got a fright, and then I had to release Mildred a little bit further away from home than what she was. I hope she managed to go back safely and avoid Gregory, the Speaks Hinge tortoise, because Gregory likes to eat that, and Gregory has a ferocious appetite. Look at this. The elephants have created the most amazing archway for us by pushing over a marula tree, and here we go. You can see how they will feast upon the roots. They haven't eaten that one, but they've munched on the one to the left. You can see how it's broken off, and there's the remnants of it on the floor just to the left of it. So they've had a great time creating lots of roadblocks for us. This is going to have to take a chainsaw. Sadly, I'm not strong enough to come through here and pick up the tree with all of its soil and its roots and move it off of the road. I'll have to lift heavier weights in order to one day be able to lift and move this tree. But maybe it keeps growing. I actually don't think it's going to die, because even though there's quite a few roots that are exposed, there are a couple that are still in the ground. You can see they've got massive roots, these marula trees. So I think that it will be fine. It will, I think, eventually just start to shoot some stems from the trunk of the tree, and it will just go straight up towards the sky. Except we have to go around. We're never going to be able to duck underneath this, not with the roof. We'll have to just go around it like this. Be careful of our eyes. Naughty elephants. Remember in winter how many trees we would come around the corner and there was just tree after tree after tree pushed over on the road. It actually provided lots of entertainment. There was lots of panga action happening a few months ago of us chopping down things. I could have probably chopped that one branch, but safety first, and I reckon that holding a sharp panga or machete with wet hands is not a good idea. Sorry, Rebecca, half of your question cut off as you were saying it. Can I have it again, please? there we go. Fox, thank you for your question that's just come through. I apologize. It's a little bit wet out here, and I think something has got wet that I keep getting intermittent communication with Rebecca. But you were wondering if, apart from elephants and humans, nice with the humans by the way, are there any other groups of animals where the female is in charge? Well, you're in luck. The hyena is another one. Rebecca, unfortunately there's no crocodiles here standing on their back legs. Doesn't look like it so far, but I have seen some blacksmith lapwings, so I think I win this one. So yes, Fox. So the hyenas are another good one that we see, and then I suppose you see it with lions as well, because the whole group. I mean, the males come and go, the females most of the time, of course, is exception to every rule, but most of the time the females are together and have a very strong bond between each other. Not so much with the males. Not as strong of a bond, so I suppose you could include them as well. They seem to boss the boys around, and normally the boys are outnumbered by the girls too. But there's a couple of them. And here with Mr. and Mrs. Blacksmith Lapwing, I'm not sure who wears the pants in this relationship, but they're very relaxed for a change. Normally the lapsmith Blackwings, and I think that's what Tristan was calling them yesterday, the spoonerisms, is that they can be quite feisty when you come about to a dam. They often start chirping at you, and they fly around and try and mob you. And earlier today we'd stopped at 3 in a row pan, and I desperately wanted to show you a little blacksmith lapwing chick, and I think Jamie's seen it there before. And so I was so sad because we stopped at a far distance because I didn't want to chase it away. And then Mom and Dad got so panicked, and they started swooping around and giving off that call that sounds like a blacksmith hard at works, clapping away down on some iron. And then that little one ran away and hid in the grass. So we decided to just be better and move away and let them relax. But these guys are happy. They're not chasing around or being chased by the little 3-banded plover that lives around here. That little bird gives them hassles. Excuse me. I'm still working on a mixture of plants out here to soothe this silly little cough that I've got. There's a couple of magpie shrikes flying around, and there's particularly one there you go. Well, that's fantastic. Now that actually looks like a juvenile to me because it hasn't developed its tail quite well yet. Now the magpie shrikes have got lovely long tails, and there's quite a few juveniles around, so I think it's still growing. Oh, and that noise was a go-away bird that's sitting up in this balanites tree. See if we can find one. There we go. Can you get that one that's just landed on that dead tree? Now we'll see if we can get. I'm not sure if the bars are positioned. Oh no. Hang on. There we go. You saw it just flutter there. It's just sitting on the edge, but you can see, look how long that one's tail is. You see that? How it sort of tapers down towards the end? So that's how I know, unless that bird has maybe pulled out one of its long feathers. That could also be the case, but we have been seeing lots and lots of juvenile birds, lots of drongos that are strange mottled colors, and then of course birds that are supposed to have long tails with shorter ones. So it's quite exciting to see all of these birds growing up, but sadly no chicks for Mr. and Mrs. Blacksmith Lapwing. So let's go into reverse. So sadly no crocodiles here. I'm hoping we'd even maybe see a hippo, but it seems as though our friends the hippos have moved on too. They were in here. So let's go back across to Jani now, and well, it's been an interesting morning. I hope she's not as wet as I am, and I'm sure that VM is looking after her. So let's go across and see what she's up to now.
I am absolutely soaked, but it's absolutely amazing being out here in this beautiful bush. It's so great just like experiencing a different area. Well, VM and myself have been tracking some lions. We found tracks earlier, and as I believe it is from the Nkunu Pride. The tracks are a little bit confusing. It seems that yesterday they have moved in close towards Simbambili, but then the tracks are also moving in and then out again. So we're just trying to figure out this pattern of these lines of where they have been moving and where they've been going. I can also not drive too fast, otherwise VM's going to get wet with the equipment here. But that is also, it's great, the slower you take it to look for tracks, the easier you will find them. But so far with any other activities, they haven't been really busy. But also again, I'm going to refer to us this morning when I mentioned days like this where it's raining and it's overcast and the weather's miserable. This is usually the perfect time to look for predators, as they always take the opportunity to be active in this. Although the cats might look for a little bit of cover as the rain comes in and it starts raining a little bit harder. At the moment I feel determined that we have to find these lions. I've known that Tayla and Jamie has also had an absolutely wonderful morning so far. I've heard you have seen some dragonfly wings, or antlion wings, sorry, let me just correct myself. There's some antlion wings under the microscope. I've never seen that before, but that does sound really, really interesting. It would be fascinating to see and to look at all of those little veins and the markings. Yeah. So I also believe Jamie have asked you earlier this morning about how many Felidae species we find in Africa. Now, I might have not counted all of the species, I might have missed one out, but I reckon it's between 9 to 10 Felidae species in Africa. But let's rather go over to Jamie and find out what the correct answer is. We'll be linking over.
Well done to Jani, and actually very well done to Tayla as well, because when I first turn myself off, otherwise we get an echo. When I first started thinking about how many cat species there were in Africa, I completely forgot about the golden cat. Completely. So Jani's absolutely right. There are 9. There are some, actually there's 10. There's one I've forgotten about, and one that I don't think we can't actually ignore. And very well done to Jay, and I think quite a few others who have been, some of you have been wrestling with something that I was also wrestling with as well, and that is whether or not the fossa or the fossa actually counts. The fossa of Madagascar counts as a member of the Felidae family. Is up for debate. There's a lot of debate about it in terms of genetic studies. They have done DNA testing on them, and the conclusion is that they belong to a completely separate family. Eurypleidae? Something like that, Eurypleidae or something along those lines. I know they did the genetic testing a few years ago. And the conclusion is that they're a separate family completely from the the cat family, and they're actually more closely related to mongoose, so Herpestidae family. But of course the mongoose themselves have also always been a matter for controversy. They were put in the viverrid family, which is with genets as well. By the way, we have a genet now that's moved into Ingers, and it keeps us thoroughly entertained and comes to investigate what we're doing in the evenings, pops out every now and again. So that's a lovely wild animal, kind of like a cross between a cat and a mongoose, very similar in the way to that a fossa is. So I was going to make some kind of Madagascar joke, but I couldn't think of any Madagascar quotes about the fossa, except that they're coming, the fossa are coming. So let's go over our various big cats, and the species that I forgot about was the golden cat, and I'll show you a picture of the golden cat. But let's just do the list first. Lions, leopards, cheetah, the 3 big cat species. Serval, caracal, African wild cat, small spotted or black-footed cat, the golden cat, and the tender doesn't want to work, and the sand cat. The sand cat, of course, vying for that position of being one of the smallest naturally occurring wild cats in this area. The 10th species is the domestic cat. And I'm going to include it because there are so many domestic cats here in Africa that I don't think we actually can't include it, or can't not include it, because there are so many feral cats. They have become part of the species that occur out here. Unfortunately, a tremendous threat to bird life, to small reptiles, and of course, as I said, in terms of interbreeding, causing massive damage to the various families of wildcats that they can interbreed with. So just quickly, the picture of the golden cat that Tayla mentioned, related to a caracal, and you can actually see, I really honestly would have preferred to use a book here. I really would. I generally prefer using books over any kind of electronic device for this sort of thing, or indeed just in general. But unfortunately, James has removed all of his books, and I didn't bring any because I didn't realize James had removed all of his books, so I'm quite devastated about that. That is the African golden cat. I have never seen one. I dream of seeing one. There is another cat that I have seen only in a zoo, and it's so cute, and that is the sand cat. How cute is that? Obviously up towards the desert areas of Africa, not in this area at all. I've never seen one apart from in a zoo, and I generally dislike seeing animals in a zoo, but that's because I've been spoilt by seeing cats in the wild and seeing them around. Now, we have a question from Anna about whether or not the big cats in this area get vaccinated for rabies. Anna, they don't. It's a difficult situation because obviously rabies is an anthropogenic source. It comes from domestic cats and dogs, and that's how it gets spread into reserves like this. That, of course, was the history behind the leopard that had to go into quarantine because he caught a feral dog that had managed to break into the reserve. But it would just be seriously impossible to try and vaccinate and do it yearly, every single lion in this reserve. There are probably about 2,000, maybe 3,000 lions in the greater Kruger area. It's not so easy to go and dart lions, and particularly with cubs. Of course, you can't dart cubs because you actually run the risk of doing serious damage to them. You can, but you run the risk of puncturing a lung, you run the risk of hitting a bone and seriously damaging it while it's still growing. So darting cubs is a difficult thing, and trying to get a lion to sit still otherwise is also a very tricky thing. The wild dogs, there's big vaccination programs for wild dogs whilst reintroducing them into certain areas. There are programs for vaccinating them just because they are such a critically endangered species out here. I also know that rabies is a disease that seriously threatens Africa's most endangered carnivore, which is the Ethiopian wolf or the red wolf. Now, speaking of all of our cat species, I have a question for all of you. It's not a trivia question, it's just a question about what you would most like to see. Which member of the Felidae family would you like to see in the wild? Which of them would you dream of seeing? And I know for a lot of you, our leopards and lions would be very, very high up on that list. I can't choose one. I've been struggling. I'm thinking snow leopard. I would probably give my left eye tooth to see, possibly the right one as well. I think it would be worth it. I would love to see a clouded leopard in Asia. That's also a big dream of mine, and an ocelot. I've always thought ocelots are the most stunning creatures. So I've given 3. But which particular big cat would you love to see in the wild? Send that through on #SafariLive on Twitter, or email through to questions@WildEarth.tv. And moving away from trivia for now, and give that a little bit of a break, I'd love to hear what Tayla and Jani would say as well, because that is something that I would absolutely dream of seeing. Rebecca, what wild cat would you like to see in the wild? Craig? No, Rebecca, that doesn't count. Rebecca's, I think, feeling a little bit homesick and would very much like to see her pet cat. Fair enough, Rebecca. Her name is Scaredy. Scaredy cat, I see. Well, it wasn't hard to guess. Now, Lindsay would like to know, do we know how similar lions, cheetahs, and leopards are to each other? We do. The cat family has been very well analyzed and broken down into their various genetics. The Panthera family is one of the oldest ones. Now, it's actually a subfamily, sorry, not a family, it's a subfamily. Panthera includes all of the roaring cats, things like leopards, lions, tigers, animals that have a hyoid, a specially adapted hyoid apparatus that allows them to create that roaring sound. Cheetahs are very, very distinct. So lions and leopards, relatively close together. And they can, if forced into a situation, they can actually interbreed, as can all members of the Panthera family. That's how you get ligers, for example, or tigons. You get jaguar. What was the mixture between a jaguar and a puma? Something ridiculous. But you can actually interbreed all of the members of the Panthera family if you put them in that artificial situation. They won't do it on their own. Cheetah are a completely separate branch, all on their own. And they lack that hyoid apparatus, so they can't roar. They actually make chirping bird-like sounds. Sounds, particularly when contact calling to their various cubs. It's a lovely sound. It makes them very special. They've also only got semi-retractable claws. They can't fully retract their claws. So they are separate. In terms of evolution, if you look at the sort of the branch, and I'll a little bit later, I won't do it right now, but what I'll do is I'll draw a breakdown of the cat family evolution and the taxonomy and where they're classified. It looks as though I think they're quite close, more closely related to pumas. They fall under those branches, so they had a sort of a common ancestor somewhere around there. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I watched this ages ago. I saw something about the cat family tree, and there was something about the fact that Panthera, obviously cats, as we know them today, their ancestors originated in Asia, and then slowly spread throughout the rest of the globe. And I think that some of the oldest families are things like tigers out there. So those Panthera members are some of the more ancient of the cats as we know them now. And there's, of course, cats throughout the world, except for certain places, certain odd places like Australia, New Zealand, and so on. So yes, there you go, a little bit of the evolutionary line of the various cat species of this place. I'm trying to think what other big cats I'd love to see. It's so hard to choose. Jaguars would also be quite high up on my list. I'd love to see a jaguar hunting a caiman. It would be an absolute dream. Rebecca says she'd love to see a puma. Again, another animal I would very much like to see in the wild, something I've seen in zoos before, but never in the wild. Although my one memory is that sort of enduring memory of the Homeward Bound, or the incredible journey, which was when the mountain lion was chasing them, the dogs and the two dogs and the cat. Just got that memory of them trapping it and sending it flying into the river. Very strong, potent childhood emotions invoked there. I have a question about what is the most endangered cat species of Africa, and that comes from Shannon. Let me just think about this for a second. I don't want to put my foot in it now. I'm not 100% sure, Shannon. I know that cheetah are quite, just going into the genetics again, we know we've spoken a lot about this as one of Brent's favorite subjects, about the fact that cheetah have very, very little genetic diversity and are slowly but surely moving towards what might actually be a natural extinction, just in terms of their over-specialization as a species and the fact that they had a genetic bottleneck at some point in their distant past. So I think cheetah are quite critically endangered. I'm pretty sure that, look, the wildcats are listed as vulnerable. They're not quite endangered just yet, but again, they've got plenty of threats around them. I have to confess I'm not 100% certain as to the status of the golden cat or the sand cat. We know that the small spotted or the black-footed cat is also quite endangered due to habitat loss and interbreeding, but I'm not sure which of them takes the point of being the most endangered cat. I know Tristan was sitting in final control and he was listing many and lots as his guesses for the cat species in Africa. I don't know if Tristan is still there or if he has an answer to the most endangered species. Perhaps, hello Tristan. Tristan, do you know which cat is more endangered? Is it the cheetah or is the small spotted cat more endangered? Yeah, okay. Tristan's saying small spotted cat would be the more endangered of them. It's also interesting because with the smaller cat species, it's difficult to get an idea as to numbers. Small spotted cat is mostly endangered just because of the endemicity of that particular species. So they're quite isolated and quite sort of specialized towards a certain area. Whereas with other species of cat, there's more spread out. Leopards, of course, are adaptable. They go into absolutely anywhere and they can survive and they can live. You hear cases of leopards in cities and all sorts of other things in between. So there you go. let us head across to Tayla. Perhaps she has a suggestion as to which of the African cats might be more endangered. I feel for her, all soggy. Shame we're going to have to wrap her up with that cough. Wrap her up in a blanket and a hot cup of coffee when she gets back. Hopefully she'll feel a little bit better. Let's go and see how drenched she truly is.
So before I even get onto the topic of what cat I think is most endangered, we've got the baboons. And they are sitting in the rain. That was very cool. You can see that one not enjoying the rain too much, giving a good shake, trying to get the excess water off of its coat. But of course, as it does that, we always see baboons eating, and it has a marula in its mouth. And what I've noticed, I ate a couple of marulas yesterday, is that they're not as sort of fleshy as what they were when they first started dropping. As I said yesterday, I suspect that this is the end of the marulas. In the next week or two, I reckon that most of the trees would have finished their yield. So there's not a lot of pulp around that big pit in the middle. You can see that baboon. He's gnawing at it, trying to grind and pull off as much of the flesh as he can. And I'm wondering, I don't know if the baboons eat the seeds. I don't know if they can get the nuts outside. We know squirrels are specialists at and little pouched mice and three-striped mice and stuff like that. They're really good at taking the nuts out of the marula seed. But I don't know if the baboon can. I wonder if they're able to wedge it out. Because every time I've really seen the seed after a baboon has eaten it, it's normally the seeds are still, or the nuts are still inside, and it's just the flesh that has been chewed off. But isn't that lovely? The whole troop is here, but you know what they're like. Unfortunately, they're a little bit on the skittish side. So we'll watch him until he disappears. Where are you off to? Where? There's the rest of them. Hello, little. There's a little one in the grass. That one's standing up, having a scan, just making sure that everything is all right. And a big shake again. But there's quite a few about them. I don't know if this is our normal troop. I only saw about 10 of them, and our normal troop has got quite a number of them. I think they're the Gowrie gang that hang around here. But maybe they've just jumped and run off ahead, and I missed them. There's a couple lurking at the back. Here it comes. Hello. Here's another little one. Now we have become completely drenched. Our waterproof covers that were waterproof are not waterproof anymore, unfortunately. And you know what that means. And it's a very light drizzle at the moment, but we're a little bit worried that our equipment is going to get soaked wet with the wet covers that are on top of it. So what I'm probably going to do now is I'll save my conversation about the cats. I'm going to quickly, we're not far from home, we're here on quarantine, so I'm going to park the vehicle and I'm going to run and join Jamie in the tent, and then I'll carry on with my discussion about what I think is the most endangered cat in Africa. So while I do that, of course, and maybe put a hairbrush through my hair, we're going to go across to Jani now, and I wonder if she's having the same problem that I am with my very frizzy hair on a day like today. Let's jump well and have a look from VM's perspective.
All right. Well, it seems as though poor Jani wasn't aware that she was live at all, and obviously could not hear Rebecca. Unlike us, well, actually, very similar to myself, I didn't hear Rebecca at all. However, I heard her through Craig's comms. The other thing I can hear is Tayla racing inside. The revs are flying up through the roof. I want to see if our bushbuck is still here. I don't see it anymore, Craig. We did have a very, very sweet bushbuck that came to visit us. We also had a herd of Impala earlier that came racing past. I got very excited. I thought they were being chased by wild dogs. That's something we still haven't had at the tent. We still haven't had a wild dog visit yet, because that would be truly, and on a day like today, it would be entirely possible because they're moving around a lot more. And we also would have no idea of no way of knowing that they were here, because the amount of rain that has drenched us all and drenched the road, there are no tracks to give us any indication. Actually, you caught me out. I was just about to come out and have a look at, was his name Tom Brady? Was it Tom Brady, the scarecrow? Rebecca? I think it was. Yes, it was. It was Tom Brady. Tom Brady is looking particularly sad and sorry for himself right now. And it's a funny thing, scarecrows, or the idea of scarecrows, because, look, admittedly, this is probably the least lifelike scarecrow I've ever seen. It's terrifying, but not particularly lifelike. And the idea, of course, was to keep various birds away from James's caterpillars. I don't see a single caterpillar. I did come out and have a jolly good look to see how they were doing, so to make sure that I could let James know while he was on leave how his various projects around the tent have been going. But I don't see a single caterpillar, very sadly. So, Tom Brady, you did not do your job. You look quite absurd and starting to get slightly damp. It's weird because birds can see so incredibly well. Birds' eyesight is far better than that of a human. And I would say that they would probably see through that disguise. It's terrifying, but I don't think that they would necessarily register that as a threat. Let's get Craig out of the rain because it's starting to drip on the camera. Right, well, of course, we are thrilled to have more rain once again. We have been at previous times in the grips of a really terrible drought. It remains to be seen whether or not we are fully out of it yet, but I'll discuss that a little bit more once you've had a chance, and some of our newer viewers have had a chance to see exactly how bad the drought truly got. Have a look at this.
Last summer was the hottest and driest in 110 years. Life became increasingly difficult for water-dependent species.
This poor hippo desperately pushing himself into the mud. A desperate situation for many of the aquatic animals as they struggle for survival in these dry times.
Less than a third of the average rainfall fell, making it difficult for the hunted and the hunters. Conflict over nature's most precious resource became intense. While forage in the woodland wilted, the animals struggled to find sustenance. The African sun baked the land. The scavengers, however, took full advantage. Until the next life-giving drops fall from the bleached sky, the air will remain choked with dust as the herds search for water and nourishment.
There you go. You got a bit of an idea as to just how dire the situation was. And I mean, we're still finding buffalo carcasses that we didn't even know were on the property, buffalo that we didn't even realize had died, and we continue to do so. Now, with the amazing prediction of Djuma, nothing really happened. The storm in the teacup Djuma, at least for us. Obviously, for the Mozambicans, it was a far more tragic situation. But the hurricane or tropical cyclone Djuma didn't really hit us. She dispersed completely. The only thing that she did do, I worked out where my sneezing fit came from yesterday. Yesterday morning, I woke up and I just couldn't breathe. I couldn't see. I was sneezing so much. And it was because Djuma flooded our bedroom and soaked one of our blankets. And when I had a look at it, it was covered in mold. That's what we were sleeping under. So that would explain exactly why it was I was sneezing. Taylor, on the other hand, hey, Sneezy, we're going to be doing this in a very interesting way.
We're playing Pass the Hat.
Imagine I'm interviewing Taylor, but with a hat.
With a hat. Because, you know, microphones are so 2000. I don't know. So we've now got a new edition, the Safari edition of a microphone. So wait out there today. I thought this jacket was pretty waterproof. It's not. they lied, I think, as to everything. But it was quite nice. So, Jamie, that conversation about the cats, that was really interesting.
It's a fun conversation. I learned something.
Definitely. I didn't know there was even a sand cat. I don't even know what that looks like. So we're going to actually have to...
So
Who's
cute.
that?
That's the sand cat.
Oh, is that the sand cat?
That is the sand
I'm having
cat.
a look at the sand cat. It's on the monitor. That is amazing. Where do they occur?
Desert.
Desert. I can imagine.
Tunisia.
I had no idea that the sand cat even existed. So that's really, really interesting. And then the golden cat, obviously what I'd read was not nonsense. I can't even remember the article, but I just remember golden cat or something along those lines popping
No, you were
out.
spot on. I didn't know it existed. So there you go. We've had a
I think it's
learning
either...
curve.
Do you know the answers to which one is the most
endangered.
endangered?
I still think small spotted is.
Small spotted.
Yeah, but
what
I don't
about
know
the sand
numbers.
cat?
I don't know the numbers of the sand
It'd be
cats or the
quite
golden.
interesting. So I don't know. Is this working?
Is it working?
Is it
Rebecca,
working?
are we both audible? Oh, good. It might not be the most, it's the sort of the smoothest way
Yes.
of doing this, but shame, Tayla. We need to get you some coffee and some
Oh no, I'll be
something
fine.
dry.
It's sadly
your
it's
cough
not my
properly.
first one. Hey, oh yes, I don't know what I'm going to take for that. It's the most annoying thing. It's one of those really pathetic coughs. Like it's not even a real one. It's a little sissy. Like I don't even know how to describe it, but it's annoying. It just sits there, and then every time I want to talk, then I have to do this,
Shame. You poor thing.
which is quite funny. But yeah, that's not so bad.
What cat would you like to see in the wild? So I went snow leopard,
Oh, wow.
ocelot, and clouded leopard. Those are my...
Okay.
But I mean, I struggled. It was a struggle. Because a tiger, imagine.
Oh, I'd love to see
see
a
a
tiger.
tiger.
I've seen so many people going to India having a look at the tigers, and it just looks unbelievable to see them out in the wild. So, I don't know. I think clouded leopard and snow leopard, and then probably a tiger would be my ones that I'd absolutely love to see. Ooh, whether I'd get an opportunity to see them, I don't know, now. Now, when?
One day.
One day.
One day when we're not so busy.
And when I'm big.
One day when you're big,
When
yeah.
I'm a grown up, yes.
One day when we're big, we're going to go and see the other cats in a while.
I'd love to go and do a safari in India, though. It looks
I'd
unbelievable.
absolutely
I don't know if
agree.
you've ever seen. I was looking at pictures, and it almost looks like a little bit like a savanna, some of the areas, because there's these big areas with big open grasslands. It was unbelievable. I had a guest that had gone and they shared photos with me, and I said, that looks amazing. They were like little trees. It almost actually looked a little bit like this, but a bit tidier, that, you know, the view that we have outside. Not so many smaller trees and pushed over.
And minus Tom Brady.
and minus this.
Bit disturbing.
Oh, don't tell James. Don't tell him. That never happened.
That never happened.
That never happened.
That never happened. We'll have to swear you all to secrecy. We're going to send you over to Yana and try and resuscitate Simon.
Hello, everybody. Earlier, when you were seeing me, we were following some lion tracks. It looked very favorable, but unfortunately, we could not locate them. At the moment, we've seen some leopard tracks as well, but it doesn't seem very good to track at the moment. We haven't seen much else, any activity or things around. Definitely a lot of like signs of animals or nocturnal animals that have been active during the evening. Yes, the birds are a little bit miserable because they're getting rained upon today. We haven't seen many of them around. A big cat I would love to see, which I've never seen before. There's probably two of the cats in the world. Would be definitely a snow leopard. They're just absolutely beautiful. And then also a jaguar, I suppose. Tigers I would also not mind to see. But jaguar, just because of the different area from South America, in the jungle areas, just the environment and seeing a large cat living and that have adapted in such areas would be phenomenal to see. What are your favorite cats in Africa? Please let me know. If any of you, I'm sure you've been watching the show for quite a long time. I'd love to hear a little bit more about all of you viewers and get to know you as well. Jamie, what is my most favorite animal to see on safari? That would probably be, I'd say, elephants. Elephants are very fun to watch. There's usually a lot of interaction. You can really sometimes relate to the activities which they do. You can relate sometimes into your daily life. I won't say daily life, but because elephants are such family orientated or group orientated animals, you can sometimes relate quite a bit to them. I think yesterday with the afternoon show, Brett had a fantastic view of a breeding herd of elephants, and you could see how the youngsters were playing around two of the younger bulls, how the matriarch was protected. Tayla was also on foot with a breeding herd of elephants, which was a little bit more different, but very, very exciting. And I'm sure you can also relate to me saying that it's always fun watching elephants, is because they're always busy doing something, from big to small. We haven't seen a lot of activity of elephants this morning. You say your favorite animal to see on Safari Live is definitely the cheetah. Now, the cheetah, I must say, is also one of the animals that I really, really do like. Currently, at the moment, in the area which we are at, I'm not sure if we'll be that successful in finding or tracking the cheetah, but they are phenomenal animals. They usually prefer more open planed areas, but I mean, if they move from one area to the other, it's really good to stop them from moving through denser or thicker areas. The only potential danger which they might have of moving through thicker or denser areas would probably be bumping into a lion or a leopard, or even a hyena, which won't be very favorable for them in that specific situation. As cheetah are a lot faster than the rest of the predators, they're not the strongest of all the predators which we find in the African bush. Jennifer, you say that you love seeing leopards on the drive. I also love seeing leopards. How exciting was it finding Karula's two cubs this morning just playing around? They were in a beautiful sight. I hope you were watching from early this morning, and if you did, I'm happy that we could have been able to find them for you to see this morning. Definitely. Leopards are always fascinating to see as well. Pretty Eyes, you are asking how big leopards' tracks are. Well, it all depends on the age, the gender, and then the specific area where leopards are from. I'd say I don't have one of the biggest hands, but I'd probably say a leopard's track would be about the size of my palm. That would be a small female, to probably the size of a little bit bigger than my hand, which would be a male's track. It's very difficult to say or to explain that, but then also a small leopard cub of probably 6 to 8 months or so, I'd reckon would probably be about this big. I hope that illustration helps a little bit, just to give you a better idea of the size differences in leopard tracks. A big male leopard's track can be about the size of a young female lion. Hannah, you are asking what animal most relates to my personality. It's very difficult to say. Well, I can say probably in a way the lion, as my star sign is Leo. I'm not as lazy and I don't sleep that much. But I'd probably go with lions, definitely. That's a very good question for the morning. I'm gonna have to think a little bit more about what suits my personality the best. Alright, for a time and while that we're still trying to find some big cats this morning, I'm going to link over to Jamie, and maybe Jamie will be able to illustrate the size of leopard tracks a little bit better with some of her artistic drawings.
Oh, I forgot about the hat. I forgot about the hat range. I'm sorry. I was laughing at Rebecca. Rebecca was trying to tell me what Jani was saying, but she just went blah, 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 live.
That's my favorite as well when they do that.
I know. I've had some amazing moments with our directors speaking into our ears. My personal favorite was Kirsty at the start of the show. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and show is wrapped. I mean, you're live.
That's when you're out going home, you start taking all the connections.
So I'm sorry, I have no idea what Jani was asking. Now, we've got a question from Hannah that Rebecca would very much like us to answer, but we don't know what the question is. Hannah says, what animal personality do you most relate to? Honey badger.
Ooh. Who for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't saying for you.
I know. I'm trying to think. No, honey badger. You're never.
I'm joking.
What? I don't know. I think let's do each other because I think it's difficult to try and choose.
Oh my goodness, Tayla, now you've put us on the spot.
What do I think? Craig is Batman.
Craig's just Batman.
Craig is just Batman. I don't know what I'd even relate to myself as.
I quite like the idea of elephants. They're just such relatable animals. And we're running out of time. We don't have time to think about this. Can we think about this and get back to you on the sunset safari? Because I feel like we need to do an animal personality for everyone. Brent's a wild dog.
Yes.
Yeah, Brent's a wild dog. So. Absolutely, unequivocally.
The very small attention span. I'm excited by hearing everything.
You should try having him as a cameraman.
Oh, really?
You don't know what you're talking about. You haven't a clue. Oh, we're looking at those. Now we're looking at that. All right. On that note, it is time for us to say farewell to you all. So a big thank you to all of us, and very well done to Jani for her interview drive in very trying conditions. Thank you to Rebecca and to Meg in Final Control, and most importantly, a big thank you to all of you. Tayla, thank you for joining us in the tent.
It's only a pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's lovely in here.
It is, isn't it? It's quite nice and sheltered.
Very nice.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you on the sunset safari. See you then.